Welcome into Missing the Point. I am your host of the weekly podcast that discusses the power rankings in the National Football League. We were just discussing pre-show that I seem to be hosting every week on this power rankings show. So I'm officially the Alex Trebek of the power rankings. It's a short-lived gig. You know, it comes and goes with the NFL season. But I enjoy it. Like, all Bobby really has to do is write names next to numbers and give me 10 teams. And I really have to add like the soupçon of brilliance.
You're really taking that Alex Trebek gig like Aaron Rodgers did, huh? You just really
no,
Wow.
because he failed at it, and I am nothing if not a success at this hosting a show thing. Aaron Rodgers believing he could do anything except play quarterback well in 2022. But we're not going to talk about him because he's not in the top fucking 10.
Yeah,
So we might, it gets crazy here on the Power Rankings show. It gets wild. It gets wild, like a party down in Boca. So essentially, Bobby gave us a rough draft this week. Didn't want to proofread and give us a final copy because he didn't decide on who number 10 was. Wanted us to do it for him. So Mike, it's the Bengals. I'm just fucking with you. It's the Bengals versus. It's going to be good radio.
Welcome back to the podcast, huh?
It's the Bengals versus the Dolphins. I think both have a legitimate claim to be in this top 10. But Mike, you made a point in our group chat before we started up this podcast because. We talk in a group chat. We talk before the show. We talk during the show. We talk after the show. I think I talked to you guys more than I talked to my wife. So you made the point that the Bengals just got fucking dog walked by the Cleveland Browns and probably shouldn't deserve the top 10. I think the alternative is probably that there's a little bit of precedence here for the Cincinnati Bengals. They were just in the Super Bowl. I know that's becoming a more and more distant memory. And we have talked about the fact that they are a little bit of a trick-or-treat team, and their talent might not always belie the result. But talk to me about why it's the Dolphins on their merit, or why it just shouldn't be the Bengals.
Okay. So it shouldn't be the Bengals, not because of what they could probably do in the future. I think if we're just talking about this week, you mentioned that they are trick-or-treat. They got their asses kicked by the
Happy Halloween, everybody.
32.
I was going to say, good Halloween team. Way to be.
32-13, and their trick is gone. Jamar Chase is out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. So, as it's currently constituted, yes, they often they come back from a big deficit. With Joe Burrow there, they've never gotten their ass kicked by such an inferior team before. So I don't understand how in this week you would still say that they're a top 10 team in the NFL. That's it.
So Bobby, before we talk about the Dolphins, I do want you to respond to that, and I'd like you to specifically respond to the idea that the Cleveland Browns are such an inferior team. I mean, yeah, they have some issues at the quarterback position, potentially more with their much maligned, very controversial star quarterback to come back in a few weeks. But again, I'm not going to sit here on a sports podcast where I'm trying to retain credibility and talk about how great the fucking Cleveland Browns are. But that's not to say that they can't win a game against an arch rival in any given situation, right? I mean, they have some decent players on their team. They got Nick Chubb, for God's sake.
Yeah, that's why I always take these Browns Bengals games with a little bit of grain of salt, especially recently, because the Browns kind of have the Bengals number over the past few years. I think
they match well.
Yeah, I think it's 4 straight games. They've beaten the Bengals. And I think it goes back to what this Bengals, weakness really is. And that's against elite pass rushers. That O-line and that game plan literally has no answer. You saw it the first 2 weeks of the season.
The Super Bowl.
Exactly, the Super Bowl. You saw it with Micah Parsons. You saw it with, I forgot who they played week 2. But then you just saw it last week with Myles Garrett because they were just all over Joe Burrow. I think with Jamar Chase in there, it might be a different story, but I'm not sure. I think that game was just set up for Cincinnati to fail. But I still have faith in this team, man. And if you just look at their biggest losses so far this year, it's against teams that have that elite pass rush. And that's not something that every team has. You look at the rest of the games, the Bengals are the team that we saw last year for their 4 wins. They're a completely different team for those 4 losses. But I just look at the upside, man. That's why I'm considering him here. And because it just seemed like such a weird game. Like the Bengals just couldn't get out of their way that entire game. I mean, granted, that's a complete negative against them, but also the Browns have kind of like a top 10 roster in the NFL. With if you take quarterback out of the equation, they
well, take quarterback out of the equation.
This is the most important position.
That's one of the greatest cars I've ever seen. If you take the engine out of the equation,
but if you Fast and the Furious, an 8-second car is an 8-second car. No, but I'm just if you put Deshaun Watson back in that position, I think the Browns are a very good contender for that 7th spot in the AFC.
Yeah,
they're definitely going to be right there once Watson comes back.
I agree with the premise. The only thing that I would say is that if we are saying that Cincinnati should be ranked in the top 10 because again of what they did last year, what they think that they could do this year, and not based off of this performance, the Bailey Zappi and the Patriots smoked the Browns. The Bengals are a far better on paper team than the Patriots, and they get their asses kicked by the Browns.
Well,
for that reason alone,
I think styles make fights, Mike. You know, it's a matchup issue as far as more so than a quality issue, and I'm not sure we're basing it necessarily off. Obviously, I've talked myself into the Bengals being the top 10 team and not the Dolphins, but although it benefits me because the Bears play the Dolphins this weekend, and if we were able to beat maybe a ranked team, we'll see what happens in the future. But the Bengals, we're not basing it off what they did last year, what they could potentially do in the future. I think that the power rankings is what you've done this season. It's not, if we were basing it game by game, it'd just be like everybody who won their game and how convincingly they won it. The Chiefs wouldn't have made it the week that they lost to the Bills. So I think there's some precedent here to say that I think my point is that there's some precedent that the Bengals might actually bounce back. Of all teams that have shown the bounce back ability once they do get fucked up by a team that they probably should beat, of all the teams that have shown that, the Patriots maybe, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Eagles. I mean, the Eagles haven't had to show it, but like those type of teams. But also, I would say the Cincinnati Bengals, they have a tendency to bounce back. They have good game plans. Like, let me ask you this: make me an argument of the Dolphins' merit over the Bengals, Mike, because to me, the Dolphins, we know exactly who they are. Yeah, I think we can look at the Dolphins and we can size them up now. Like as long as their quarterback's brain isn't melting when they send him back on the field, I think we kind of know what we're getting with the Dolphins, which isn't a bad team, but there's some potential, I think, for the trick or treat nature of the Bengals to say, maybe we should hedge our bets and put them in at 10.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm before I talk about the merit of the Dolphins, I just want to say one last thing to hopefully solidify my point against the Bengals. Please. They're 0-3 in their division this year, and that's disgusting. And they had a winning record. They had a winning record in their division last year. But the Dolphins in this game and for this week did what the Bengals normally did last year, and they overcame a large deficit against a high-scoring offense. And they were down 27-7. And they come back to win that game 31-27. So they overcame the adversity. I think Tua looked really good, 29-36. This team just feels like that it is the team to hit your wagons to if you're talking about between the two. That offense looks unstoppable in terms of the wide receiver core. And then they're going to have a 100-yard rushing game every game, and it's going to be from different people. It's going to be between Tua, Mostert, and now Wilson Jr. I just think that based off of the merits of this week, they looked like a top 10 team in the NFL.
It's a fair point, Bobby. They have gotten better, with the moves that they made in close to and up to the deadline. And I will say that if we're talking about dynamism in offenses, I mean, not something I thought I would be saying at this point in the NFL season when we kicked this whole thing off, but I do think the Dolphins probably do have a more dynamic offense. And I don't see them, like you said, getting in their own way, tripping over their own dicks for a whole game against the team they should be beating. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, no. So this is what I said I was going to surprise you, because I am leaning Dolphins on this decision here because of how electric that passing offense really is. Tyreek Hill so far this season has 4 games over 160 yards. Do you know how many games the rest of the NFL has over 100? Every receiver, the rest of the NFL over 160 yards.
4? Yeah.
4. Yep. So Tyreek Hill has as many as the rest of the NFL. Yeah. So you add him in with Waddle. Now you have Jeff Wilson, which I think that honestly was one of the more underrated moves of the deadline, because you look at what Chase Edmonds was in Arizona. He didn't fit that zone run scheme. Now Mike McDaniels has his 2 running backs that he loved from 2 years ago in San Francisco, Jeff Wilson and Mostert. So he has a running game that he's used to. He has wide receivers that are electric. It all relies on Tua, man. That's what scares me the most. And listen, I know they're undefeated with Tua so far this year. And he's been a definite surprise so far this season.
I mean, surprising the fact that I feel like at the start of the NFL season, would have said, okay, maybe their offense will be dynamic, but it's not going to be because of Tua. But we actually got an opportunity to see that he is the thing that kind of glues them all together. He's a good decision maker. I also think, and again, this might be a huge bias, but I think that the NFL is sort of leaning towards that type of quarterback now. It's sort of set up for those types of quarterbacks to win. You're Peyton Manning, read the defense, call 4 audibles, and then win the game in the regular season most of the time. But that type of archetypal quarterback really isn't what teams are looking for anymore. If you have the Tyreek Hills of the world and the running game that the Dolphins have, what you need is a guy who can make good decisions on the fly, and a guy who can do well when the play breaks down, and a guy who can move, like he's also got wheels. And I think that this is what teams are looking for these days. As much as I kind of want to stuff Mike McDaniel in a locker every time I see him, like I just want to bully him. I do think he has put together, he's just bullyable. Come on, let's be honest. And we should bring back bullying, but that's a whole different conversation. But but like, if you look at him, and I don't mean Mike McDaniel, I mean the Dolphins, he has put together a pretty succinct and clear game plan in that in Miami. And I think they're pretty decent. I think that the worst thing about the Dolphins is that they're in the same division as the Bills.
Right. And also, the one knock against them leading up to this week was that their pass rush wasn't what it should be. And then they went out and got Bradley Chubb.
Yeah, that was a really good pickup. I was going to say that was probably their best move, but debatable either way. I think what we sort of discovered having this conversation is that the Dolphins are trending upwards and the Bengals are trending sideways.
Sideways, yeah. I was going to say, I would say sideways to down.
Yeah, possibly down. We'll see. They do have a little bit of a light run coming up, I believe. I think the Bengals play the Panthers, who I will not accept that they're all of a sudden like a good team. Like that.
PJ,
that's not
you're not going frisky. You're not getting frisky.
I'm not doing it. We'll see. I mean, I'm happy to be proven wrong. It's been a crazy season in the NFL. Like we said, a lot of parity, but I'm not there yet. But it's going to be a good test. I mean, it's going to be a good test for both teams. So,
come on, bro. Deontay Foreman.
Deontay
Foreman.
He's decent. He's had one good game, so that probably means he's going to be the best player in the league. But fantasy managers just overreacting like across the league. But listen, it sounds like both you guys are leaning Dolphins. So I think the only fair thing to do is to have me decide and choose the Bengals. No, I'm just kidding. We'll put the Dolphins in at number 10. Yeah. I think you guys talked me into it. They are more exciting to watch. If I had a choice to put on either the Bengals game or the Dolphins game this coming weekend, I probably would choose the Dolphins. They're more watchable. I do love Joe Burrow. I have a soft spot in my heart for him. And I do hope they get that figured out down there in Cincinnati, or over there in Cincinnati, I should say, if we're being geographically correct. On this podcast, we are always geographically correct, if not politically. Number 9, the downtrending Giants, Bobby. I mean, we had a fun conversation about the New York teams and how maybe their records were a little inflated, but they were fun to watch. They were entertaining. They had figured some stuff out with a subpar quarterback, in both cases. Maybe one not subpar, but maybe not quite proven yet. What do you think? Is this a little bit of a one-off, or are the New York team's going to go away and not talk to us again like we kind of thought they should in the first place?
Well, so the Giants are going away. I can guarantee you that, because their next 2 games are against the Texans and the Lions, and
those are 2 very winnable games for college football teams.
If they're respectable at all, they win both those games. You know what I mean?
Can I ask you a question before you continue, though? On that note, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it is an interesting question to me. The Giants are a team they're a confidence team. I don't think anyone could sit down, and it would be absolutely fucking painstaking to do, but I don't think anyone could really sit down and convince me that they have a top 10 roster in the NFL. But here they are in the top 10 power rankings for the last, 6 weeks. And I think it's because of the coaching staff, who have done an admirable job pumping them up and getting them to play, the game plan, all this kind of stuff. You're walking a tightrope, but you don't have the talent, is what I'm saying. And if you lose a game, I don't know if you've ever seen the film The Replacements, but quicksand, man, quicksand. We might be in a little bit of a quicksand situation. Too early to tell, I'll admit, But if there's any type of team to have that happen, I've seen it before. That's all I'm saying. You start hot, you win your first 6, you win 6 of your first 8 or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, one thing goes wrong. And then another thing goes wrong. And all of a sudden, not everybody's buying in, singing off the same hymn sheet. And it's a completely different story because you don't have a guy that can just stunt on another team and pull your ass out of the fire. So before you continue on the Giants, do you think that that's a real possibility?
Listen, quicksand's a scary mother. Let me tell you, quicksand's a scary
If
mother.
it wasn't completely fictional, I would be super scared of it.
No, because the coaching staff. I don't see that happening with this team. Listen, I don't like the Giants. Everything in my body tells me to be like, yeah, no, fuck the Giants. They're not for real. But when you have such a well-coached team in such a horribly coached league, man, every week there's
True.
just,
I mean, we talk about this all the time.
it's absurd how bad the coaching is this year in the NFL. And I just see them leaps and bounds above the rest of the NFL when it comes to coaching. Like, you don't see them making those stupid mistakes. You don't see Daniel Jones making those horrible turnovers that he did in the past. And the game plan is just consistent. They are who they are. And they're not going to sit here and go for it every fourth down. They're not going to run themselves out of a game. They're not going to throw a pick down by 3, with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Like,
I just don't know if not making simple mistakes is enough to be considered an elite team.
I think it is this year, though. This is such a weird year. Like, can you think of some? All right, so the Bengals, yes, okay, I'll give you the Bengals. But of all the teams that aren't on this list, is there anyone that you trust besides the Bears and the Patriots, respectively, that you trust more than the Giants right now? That's how I look at it. Is like when it comes down to nut crunching time, there's no one else that's not on this list that I trust above them.
Maybe, but I just don't know if I trust the Giants at all. I mean, I agree with you that there's a lot of bye Robbie, bye Bobby. There's a lot of untrustworthy teams in the NFL. I agree, but Mike, did the Giants lose because something got found out about what they put together, or are the Seahawks just good? I mean, they're the next team on the power ranking, so I'm totally okay to talk about them too.
Yeah, so I think that this is a situation where the teams are so similar in the sense that, I think that Seattle has the better skill players in terms of the wide receivers. But if you get up on on the Giants by, 7, 10, 13, they will not 9 times out of 10 be able to overcome that because their quarterback is not elite.
Because they're game managers. They're coming in to manage their way through a game. If you get up on them like that, like you said,
they have to start quick. And if they do, they'll be okay. Like when you asked Bobby, the next couple of games are against, I think you said the Lions and the Texans. The Lions will pose a big threat to them because they can score. Now they can't
punch you in the mouth early. Yeah, right. They can punch you in the mouth early, and you have to be able to respond to that. You just do.
Right. So I think the Seahawks we undervalued. Bobby and I really undervalued them in our division pick.
I think we all did, though. I don't think that. I don't think that I don't think there was anybody
literally
victory. There's nobody doing a victory lap about the fucking Seahawks that isn't a Seahawks fan right now. So I wouldn't worry about that too much.
I think even most Seahawks fans that do a victory lap, they're fucking lying.
Yeah,
right. Nobody thought Geno Smith was going to come in here and put in a fucking top 10 quarterback performance across the season.
Unreal.
It's just nobody thought that. So fair enough.
I would just say that if this season goes like south real quick for the Giants, then now Daniel Jones is not the guy. Because if the coaching is what we all think it is, and they don't make those mistakes, and he still can't lead this team that started out 5-2, then it's time to move on. And I think
we know that Daniel Jones is not the guy. I mean, I think
so bad this week.
But I mean, that was inevitable. Like that was an inevitable. There's death taxes in that game from Daniel Jones. There's very few guarantees in life, but that was coming. And I think it's I'm not taking anything away from the coaching staff. I think they've accomplished a lot across the first 7-8 games of the season, but nobody gives a fuck what you did in the first 7-8 games of the season come playoff time. So you got to be able to put your money where your mouth is. And I'm confused as to why. And I'm not blaming you guys. I think this is a thing across the entire national media over the past couple of days. Like every 10 seconds on ESPN, it's, oh my God, well, it's still an amazing thing that this coaching staff has done. Why do they get why do they get the praise, but not the blame?
I think it's a very good question, honestly, because the precedent is there for the skill players to get that blame. And because, listen, the story of this year is Brian Dabble. You know what I mean? And the media is going to run with that 100 times out of 100. I can't remember a first-year coach that has had this kind of impact on a team that he has. You know what I mean? Like you guys have said, they're a bottom 10 team in terms of talent. Like literally, it's Saquon.
I don't know if we're talking about just degree of impact. I've seen John Gruden come in and destroy teams, like really take good teams and make them terrible.
Positive.
I also just want to say,
my fault.
someone from the same coaching tree did start 6-0 in Denver one year, and then was fired unceremoniously the next year. McDaniels.
Man,
Josh
I was
McDaniels,
gonna say Josh.
You know, I heard
he was cheating.
As a quick aside,
Yeah.
as a quick aside, I heard an interesting theory today. Not my theory. Somebody random on the internet, but I can't amalgamate this information. Also, remember your name, so apologies. I heard that there's some weird clause in Carr's contract that if he doesn't win a certain amount of games this season or like up until this season, they can cut him and not pay him like the $100 million that they owe him. And McDaniels is like intentionally tanking, which I normally wouldn't believe.
That's a Josh McDaniels move.
But it is Josh McDaniels. And also the way he's lost games is like, it's been like trying to let your little brother win. You know what I mean? Like, which I never would fucking do, by the way. It doesn't teach him anything. But I think, you know, I've seen him make crazy mistakes that like, it is a little believable that Josh McDaniels can make those mistakes. But I mean, it's been pretty crazy. Anyway, whatever. Maybe it's true. Maybe it isn't. We're not talking about the Raiders because they fucking suck. We're talking about the Seahawks and the Giants. So, you know, I guess in summation, Bobby, if it wasn't a good team that was also like one spot up on the power rankings, maybe we'd have a little bit more to worry about the Giants. But, you know, nothing really wrong with losing to the Seahawks. However, as much as everybody wants to talk about this narrative, Mike, everybody wants to say, oh, like, look at this coaching staff, you know, look what they're doing with a guy that's basically, you know, a fucking heartbeat inside a traffic cone in Daniel Jones. Like, look what they're doing. It's nice to craft that narrative, but I think if we're all being honest, we're halfway through the season. This is not a playoff team that's going to go anywhere. They'll get in, their record will get them in, but they're not going to do anything in the playoffs because of, hey, Mr. DJ. So talk to me about this. I'd love to hear your thoughts on essentially the crafting of narratives across the sports media and this stuff that seems to always happen. And is it fair to a team like the Giants to big them up like this? Because you can only fall from a higher precipice that when you've been brought to this level by people gassing you up. Daniel Jones is still your quarterback. They could have steadily built. But once you get captured, once you capture the nation's attention, this is what happens. And now they have a much higher plinth to fall off if they do and will inevitably fall off come playoff time. So talk to me about what do you think? What do you see for the future of this franchise, the short term?
Short term is Daniel Jones is not the guy. We all know it. I think we all know it. This little Cinderella starts of the season has kind of masked it. If there's anything that the national sports media.
Well, Cinderella's start was actually pretty bad. It was her finish that we like. We want a Cinderella finish.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to get.
The Bears have done like a Cinderella start.
Are we gonna do a rewatchables on Cinderella? That sounds pretty fun. I mean,
fucking stepsisters are such cunts, man.
I would just say there's nothing more that the national sports media likes to do than tear you down after they built you up for no reason.
Yeah, so, right. They're gonna Britney Spears them. That's what's happening. That's my whole point. Yep. I really genuinely think that's where we're headed because everybody likes to see this happening to the Giants, and it's great. And Giants fans are probably sure, but there's truisms in football that we know. And Bobby, as much as you're high on this Giants team, and you should be, Daniel Jones is still their quarterback, Bobby.
Yeah,
he's still their quarterback. We're gonna talk about this when we get to number 5 in fucking Minnesota Vikings. This is gonna be the same theme. So. These poor fuckers, man. It's not gonna work out for them. That's what I'm talking about. If the quicksand thing is going to be led by the guy who we know is going to fail, and it's in the job where you can't fail. So, you know, shouldn't we? I guess my question to you, to just be more specific, is shouldn't we be all collectively pumping the brakes on the Giants now that we have the vision of the playoffs in our future? Now that we can see the playoffs coming, shouldn't we be pumping the brakes on them because they're not going to fucking do it. They're not going to do it. We know this. I'm on record now. It's fine.
But yes, that means that we have to sit here and instead of pumping the brakes on the Giants, you want us to gas up the $3 and $5, or you want us to gas up the so disappointing 3-4 Rams
I'm glad
or
you
the
asked
4-3
you've led me.
Chargers.
I honestly, I'm genuinely glad you asked because you've led me to my ultimate point. Whilst I believe this is what I've been thinking about, because every week on this power ranking show, we have this similar thematic conversation, and everybody's really done it now. Everybody's kind of come through. You and I are on it more oftentimes because you make the power rankings and I talk about the power rankings. But people are coming in a rotating cast of characters. We've had Joe, we've had Mike a couple of times. Ray doesn't want to come on. I don't think
we haven't had Ray yet.
I don't think he wants to come talk about the power rankings. I think he's just too upset about the Celtics most of the time. But I think the recurring theme is like, wow, I really thought that like there'd be more the good teams to be pulling away by now, and like there's so much parity. People have made the point, oh, September's more like the preseason now, blah blah blah. I still think that the teams that we know are good, that we know have the best talent on their rosters, are going to end up populating this list by the end of the school year. And I think that's what's going to happen. I know I know it's like the NFL season's drunk right now. I get it, but I think it's going to sober up. I think it's going to sober up. Look, I'm not making any specific.
You think it's going to get that cup of coffee and a hot shower?
I'm not going to do that because I don't want to attach myself to any specific records because it could be anyone. But one of the Rams, the Bengals, the Bucks, one of these teams that we thought were going to be better coming in, they are going to finish with double digit wins. What? Say that again?
Notable admission from that list: the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, well,
fuck that.
It's not going to be them. Fingers fucking crossed. But what? I mean, I'm not listing all of them. I think there's other teams as well that really have started very disappointingly across the start of the season. Coaching decisions, like all this. I mean, I thought the Pats were going to be better. These teams that aren't in the top 10, I guarantee. Well, I'm not going to guarantee it. Fuck it, I guarantee it. Are going to populate. Right. Some of them are going to populate this list by the end of the season. And Mike, it seems like you agree with me.
Yeah, I would just summarize your eloquent speech.
I need that. I need someone to bring brevity into my life.
With just a question of Bobby right now. Who do you have more faith in, the 6-2 Giants or the 3-5 Bucks?
God damn it.
That's it.
See, that's what I mean.
That's it.
That's what I mean. Because what did we talk about? What did we get to the heart of in this conversation? Daniel Jones, not the guy. Look me in the eye and tell me that Tom Brady couldn't possibly still be the guy. You can't. You can't. Because you, me, Mike, and everyone listening to this has at one point written that motherfucker off. At one point they've done it at least once. And then he comes back and fucking proves you wrong. So yeah, maybe it does happen. Maybe it doesn't. But come on, man. You got to have the guy.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But also, it's way less fun to put the 3-5 fucking Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Of course, dude. Of course.
Yeah, sure.
Listen, I'm not saying that the Giants didn't earn their spot on the list as of right now, under the criteria of what power rankings should be. Like they're the movers and the shakers in the NFL right now. I just think some of the adults haven't come to the meeting yet. That's all I'm saying. That's essentially my entire point. And once they do,
they take the night off from the parent-teacher conferences.
Yeah, and maybe the kids are going to pipe down once they get into the conference room. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying. I'm not saying all of them. I'm not saying all the surprising good teams are going to are going to turn bad. I'm not saying all the surprising bad teams are going to miraculously be great all of a sudden, but a few will. And this list is going to become a little bit more realistic, I think, in the coming weeks. And a great example of that is the fucking Tennessee Titans, who are essentially the color.
They're not good
to me. I don't understand them. I don't know how they win football games. I couldn't fucking tell you. I mean, listen, I always used to say that the Tennessee Titans were my second team because I loved the Air McNair, Kevin Dyson, Eddie George,
their logo is
2000. Yeah. Baby blue fucking jerseys, like Steve McNair was like all swag, RIP, like big ups. But like, I loved the Titans for that reason. I still like him. I like Mike Vrabel as a coach. If you asked me to write, I remember the classic 5-paragraph essay, put your name in the heading, do it the John Collins way. I couldn't even form a thesis statement about what this Tennessee Titans team actually is. I think it's Derrick Henry. I think they're Derrick Henry. I think that's what it is. So I don't know. Either one of you, just please tell me, how do I make sense of this team? Why are they on this list? Because they've won a lot of games somehow.
Yeah, that's it, bro.
Are they
honestly?
Good?
I have to say, every time I do this power rankings,
you're like, oh fuck, I gotta put
those first four. Yeah, those first 4 teams are like, oh my fucking god, I have to put this team on this. Listen, I think what sums us up perfectly of who the Titans are So right now, right, you look at the AFC South. Jacksonville is 2-6, Indy is 3-4-1, and Tennessee is 5-2. So like they got a nice 2-game cushion on that division. Do you know what the point differential is in that division right now? It's fucking absurd. The Jaguars are plus 14 point differential on the season. The Colts are minus 28. The Tennessee Titans have given up a touchdown less than they've scored so far this season, and they're fucking 5-2. That is the most absurd stat I've ever seen in my entire life.
It's like when you look at the guy above you in the fantasy football table and you've scored like 200 more points than him, but he's got like 3 more wins than you because he just like played the right teams at the right week.
Yeah, it's
you
absurd.
Know, Mike.
Yeah.
So
definitely not talking about me.
You know, it's funny you say that. It did sort of strike a chord with me. It's like I know you guys don't watch soccer, but every year in the Premier League, there's always a team that just scrapes out a bunch of 0-0s. Like they're just the worst fucking team you could ever imagine to watch, but they achieve success because they don't lose a lot, right? So I think what you're essentially explaining to me is that the Tennessee Titans are just they're not winning. They're just kind of not losing. Mike, what do you think? Is that an accurate statement about this Tennessee Titans? Or do you have some sort of miraculous angle on it?
Before you go, the AFC South, I don't know if you guys follow college football.
Bobby's obsessed. Bobby's obsessed with the AFC South.
But it's just so funny because if you watch college football, there's a conference called the MAC, right?
Yeah, and everyone we're here on the sports podcast. We know.
But everyone who follows the MAC knows what MACtion is because the MAC has the most absurd football week to week. Like this past week, there was like this crazy fucking lateral. I don't know if you guys saw that, but Ball State, and like that's exactly what the AFC South is. Like, yeah, they could absolutely upset the Chiefs any week. You know what I mean? It could happen.
It would happen this week if it was going to happen. Funny enough, the Tennessee Titans do play the Kansas City Chiefs.
But like, look at the Colts.
I don't agree with you that they're going to.
But the Colts beat the Chiefs, but the Colts also just lost to the fucking Commanders. So it's,
well, I just don't know if you can do that kind of. I don't know if you can do that kind of if then with football. I think there's just a lot of matchup issues. So, Mike, what do you think about this Titans team? I guess in the context, since we brought it up, of them going to play, say, the Kansas City Chiefs this weekend. Yeah. Are we going to see them on national television basically tell us who they are? Because that's kind of what.
Yes, we are. So the Titans got lucky last week that they matched up against a team that they could actually just tell before the game. We are not going to throw the ball 11 times.
Less than 100.
We're 55 yards to be exact. We're just going
like that Tim Tebow Broncos team.
Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna give Derrick Henry the ball 41 times. Stop him. And instead he rushed for 220 yards and 2 touchdowns. So they got lucky this week. They can't play that way. Like it's
not lucky to have your best guy play well.
Well, you can't go against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs without a quarterback and win.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
So to your point, yes, they're going to show us who they are.
But the Chiefs are vulnerable to the Derrick Henrys of the world. I mean, I'm not talking myself into this. I'm just creating some sort of.
I mean, Tennessee was up like 18-0 on them, and then 38 seconds later, it was
right.
Kansas City.
That tends to be about the Chiefs. People, they're like, oh fuck, we're down. Hold on a second.
Oh, it started. Yeah, great.
5 touchdowns. I kind of love that about them, to be honest with you. It's one of the more entertaining teams to watch for that reason. Okay, yeah. I mean, I see that. I guess that the kind of the thesis that we've borne down into in this conversation about the AFC South in general is that the Jaguars could be fucking 5-2, you know, or 5-3. You know what I mean? Like that they could easily have happened, and the Titans could have won one game. So it is a weird division, and I think, like we were kind of talking about in the last segment, and a point I think Mike has made before the season started, and it sort of came true with like the Dallas Cowboys and their cohort. It's going to shake itself out. You know, it's going to shake itself out. I think that the AFC South is a fight to the bottom, you know, so you guys can just figure out who the shittier of all your shitty teams are, and then we'll just get on with the playoffs when none of you are going to be relevant.
Can I go for a quick South tangent? And not about the AFC South. What's worse? What's worse? The AFC South or the NFC South? Because those two divisions right now are just literally hot garbage. The NFC South is the only division where every single team in the division has been outscored so far this season. There is not one team in the NFC South who has a positive point differential.
But
Not one.
Okay, well, I don't know, man, because it sounds like you think that the NFC South is worse than the AFC South, but the NFC South is populated with teams that you've backed like across the course of the season. Like you've been huge on the New Orleans Saints.
I was huge,
and they're kind of doing some shit. You know, they
jumped off. Yeah.
You just explained to me why the Panthers are going to be the fucking second coming. Like, we just talked about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers basically being like unfuckwithable because they have Tom Brady, and like we can't chalk them off the list yet because they have Tom Brady. We can't put
the fucking Falcons are in first place.
And the Falcons, I mean, I've tuned into a couple of those games like late in the second half. There's some fun stuff happening. I love Cordarrelle Patterson. You and I were just talking about him yesterday because you wouldn't trade him to me. So when he comes back,
isn't he an IR?
Yeah. Is he done?
No. It's 4 weeks or 5 weeks.
When did that happen? It doesn't matter. So when he comes back, regardless, when he comes back, they're still kind of a fun team to watch. So, I mean, I'm not sure what my answer is. I haven't thought about it, but isn't your answer that the AFC South are worse?
Yeah. They are for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. If you were to match up these AFC South teams versus the NFC South, I think I'd put my money on most of those NFC South teams, to be honest.
Yeah. I wish they had done that thing where they play each other this year, but I think they're matched up with different separate conferences. I'm so glad I got both of you guys though. I got the Pats and the fucking and the Cowboys playing the Bears this year. And honestly, if I was gonna pick which one to win, I probably would have picked the Pats, so it worked out. All right, moving on. You know, we're here to talk about the San Francisco 49ers, everybody. I still like them. I like them. I do. I think as much as the Jimmy G's of the world, again, like, you know, we've seen him come up short in real time. I like the defense. I like the culture. I like the coach. I like the coach's ability to draw a lot out of mediocre quarterbacks. I think that's a resume that can't be taken from him. I like his name because it's a strong Irish name. I like their jerseys. You know, I've been to San Francisco a couple times. It was a nice place to be. I like them. I'm high on the 49ers still this week. Talk me out of it.
Can I just say that CMC looks sexy as fuck in a San Francisco 49ers
Everybody looks
jersey.
better in red than they do in blue.
It's sexual.
Everybody looks better in red. It looked like it fit. You know, it looked like
it should have been there the whole time.
There was some serendipity about it. There was a little bit of pixie dust on it, I will say. And I hope he can use that pixie dust on whatever ligament he tears in the next 3 weeks. But I wouldn't wish that on him. I'm only joking. He just does get hurt a lot, and I didn't, you know, whatever. Fantasy football, and if you've ever been burned by the man, it stays.
Which everybody has. Inevitably.
Everybody has, right?
You've ever had first,
unless you have him this year, apparently.
Yeah.
So yeah, talk to me about the 49ers.
So,
am I too high on them, or where are we going with this?
I don't think so, because I see this as a tier jump. This is where we go from, upstart, upside, could possibly win a playoff game to we're in contender territory now.
Oh, really? Because I know, spoiler alert, the Kirk Cousins Vikings are right after this. So
we'll get
that's
there.
Interesting that you think
as long as
they
get that early Saturday playoff game, we're fine.
The TV's not working. The broadcast isn't going out. Kirk.
The Vikings are
17 touchdowns later.
Yeah.
All right, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just think the 49ers are legit, man. I thought this going into the season, and I think it even more now with Jimmy G, just because they don't have unknown at quarterback anymore. You know what you're getting from Jimmy G. Let's be real.
Yep.
Everyone knows you're going to get one bad throw of a half from Jimmy G. And it's just a matter is if you can stop them on that turnover, whatever the case may be. You know what I mean?
Why does he ever throw the ball over anybody's head? Like, you could just New England that offense. You could just New England that offense, and you could just be like, you only throw underneath passes that you're 100% sure aren't be intercepted.
With CMC, that's what they're going to do. I mean,
that's what I mean. I mean, the dump off potential is crazy. Like Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes, circa 2019, like levels. If you play that way, so talk to me about it, Mike.
Yeah, he had 2 bad throws in this game, but it didn't really cost him anything, right? I think what was he like?
Kind of in the story of his season,
like 21 of 25 for like not 250 yards. But I think the best part about this is if he stays healthy, this is going to be the early CMC from Carolina. I mean, he threw a touchdown, he caught a touchdown, and he ran for a touchdown. He was their leading receiver in terms of receptions. And this offense, which with him and Debo, when they're both healthy, that's fucking ridiculous. And now George Kittle has decided that he's no longer a blocker. He's actually a tight end again. So that is a dynamic offense with a good defense. I think that they are going to be a hard team to beat. But again, I think with CMC now, the whole thing was if you get up on Jimmy early, he can't come back. He doesn't have to throw Hail Marys anymore or deep passes. Like he can literally, he has two elusive playmakers. He just takes it off too.
He's got the worst fucking deep ball I've ever seen. He should just never do that.
Have you seen Mac Jones' deep ball?
Well, he's just basically diet Jimmy G. So, I wonder, would you be worried if your house was made of straw like their house is, though? To double down on Christian McCaffery when you have at your most important position a guy who is provably made of fucking wind, essentially, and Christian McCaffery, who is. When was the last time he played a full season? Ever? Has it ever happened? I would.
3 years. 19?
3 years.
Yeah, 18 or 19.
So 3 years ago, he played a full season, right? So there you go. Deebo Samuel. I'm not saying he's injury prone. I'm not going that far. But he comes in and out. He's
not injury prone.
Well, has he been out for like a whole? Oh shit, we lost Deebo Samuel for a year.
No, but he's usually like two.
He's in and out. Is my point? You know, he's in and out, and I think that, like you said, he's such a key to that offense. Like I like Ayuk. Ayuk is how you say his name, right? I like him. I like a lot of the guys that they have peppered around that offense. They don't use George Kittle as a pass catcher anymore. I guess that's fine. I don't really get it, but like sure. Yeah, sure, but it's just like you have a guy throwing underneath passes, like just fucking throw it to your tight end. I thought that was like what the Bill Belichick Bible of fucking offense was, like that's how you do that. We've seen it work. I just do it. It's like the easiest way to do it too. So I don't really understand when they don't. Doesn't matter. Point is, you've built your team on a lot of guys that, like, the doctors in San Francisco better be real good. They better be real good, and they're sweating right now. It like you're going all in. You know, you're rolling the dice. What are you nervous about that? Because to me, one of these guys is going down at the worst possible moment.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's inevitable. I agree, but until it happens, like I put in the chat earlier, because like, bro, CMC is built for this goddamn offense. He really is, man. Like with the quarterback, with that zone run scheme, with his cutting ability, like this is CMC's dream offense. It was the offense that he excelled at in Stanford. Stanford runs a zone running scheme, and this is what made him CMC. It's what made him who he is today. So I know it's such a big like hypothetical, but as long as he stays healthy, the sky is the goddamn limit for this team. Because listen, you saw what they can do with a running back. Like, listen, Mostert's good. Jeff Wilson's good. Elijah Mitchell's good, but they're not fucking Christian McCaffrey. And if you can input a running back like him into a system that produced 1,000-yard rushers with Jeff Wilson, with Elijah Mitchell, with all these dudes that we had never heard of before, can you imagine what that rushing game could be with CMC when they're healthy? You can, because we saw it this past weekend. So it's just the sky's the limit with this team. I love them. If they get hurt, yeah, they're going to drop. But for right now, man, I couldn't be higher on the 49ers. I hate the 49ers.
No, I mean, I like them. I genuinely like them. I agree. Mike, if the fantasy draft is today and you have the first overall pick, do you take Christian McCaffrey?
Knowing what I know, no, I don't.
Oh, I didn't know how you really threw me a fucking changeup there.
No, because
looking like you were gonna say it.
I still have all the confidence in the world. If that was the scenario, if I needed him in the championship game of the fantasy draft, he would be out that week due to an injury. So I couldn't do it. But listen, I think that this the scenario with him in San Francisco takes a lot off of his plate. The majority of his injuries in Carolina were not when he was a pass catcher, but when he was either a blocker or a runner. He was averaging 26 carries a game. And in San Fran, he's going to be like 15 to 18. So you're going to be able to alleviate some of those heavy hits that he was taking from fucking 300-pound linemen right off the bat. I think this is the best case scenario for him. It would kill me not to take him, but I've been burned 4 times by him. I will never draft Christian McCaffery.
You do get burned by him a lot every year. Like, Mike, you got first pick, bro.
Bobby, same question.
Yeah, no, I'm taking. Sorry, like I said, the CMC being in the system is so perfect, man. Like Kyle Shanahan even admitted, like they wanted CMC when he was coming out of Stanford. They didn't get him. And he told CMC that, like, listen, it was obviously a joke, but like, listen, this is our plan all along. We wanted to wait 4 years for us to build this offense and for us to make it perfect for you to come in here, because he knows that CMC is the perfect back, man, because he's so patient. He waits for those holes to open up. And once that hole is open, he's gone. He's through that hole. And plus, he throws a better deep ball than his goddamn quarterback. So, yeah. I'm picking CMC.
No, you're not wrong. I feel like probably the
That
happiest.
was a perfect throw, was it not? It was
really
it
good.
was a dime.
I would say that, like, you know, those plays as they're designed are beneficial. You know, it's like you can do it once, but can you do it again? Probably not. I mean, it's just harder to actually put a position of quarterback. You know, you're sort of judged by your entire day / week /
It was better than Amari Cooper's. That's all I got to say. That was a terrible fucking throw.
Yeah, you know when the worst throw of, like, most of the time when you see a receiver throw a pass, the worst throw you'll see is the sideways throw. Like, it's the first one that they do to try to set up the deep ball, and it's like, that's going behind the line of scrimmage. This is a terrible idea. Oh shit! Okay, they run it back to the house. Great.
You know who's got a gun? Is Odell. I gotta say, Odell has a gun. Bro.
I imagine they all have, like, really good arms. Like, they're all like top tier athletes.
I thought you were about to say he has an actual gun. I was like, well, I didn't mean actual gun.
No. That was Plexico. But I will say, Kyle Shanahan just came out today and said, like, they're going to be in the Odell Beckham market. So if you add him to that fucking team, Jesus.
Yeah. Sky's the limit.
So many sprained ligaments. All around.
Yeah. I mean, we also just haven't really talked about, and we don't really have time to, but we haven't really talked about their defense. As much as they haven't been as good as they were at the start of the season, they don't really have to be anymore. And this is I mean, I'm glad that they're good, because if the offense is what you guys seem to think the offense is, they're gonna be out in the field quite a bit, because the touchdowns are gonna come quick and they're gonna come often. So I'm excited to see the 49ers. I personally think they should be at number 5 over the next team we're gonna talk about, because I really do have way more faith in this 49ers team being thereabouts come playoff time than this next team, the Purple People Eaters, the Minnesota Vikings. It hasn't quite gotten cold enough up there in Minnesota. But I still think it's gonna, because their fucking quarterback, Bobby, is Kirk Cousins. And we talk about this every week, but I see him creeping up the fucking power rankings.
Fucking winning.
I understand.
Winning.
I understand. I get it. I you know, their record speaks for itself, as does their quarterback's record in prime time. So I'm going to go to Mike first on this.
I have a question.
I'm surprised.
I mean, I fucking hate Kirk Cousins. I hate him. I don't trust him. He sucks in prime time.
He hit me with a car once.
Yeah.
He defrauded me out of some money.
But he's one of those. He just happens to be on a better team than, like, the Lions. But the Vikings he is what the Lions are. He's a high scorer. He's going to make a shit ton of mistakes. He just happens to have a lot of talent around him. I think if they
a lot
smart,
of talents around him,
a lot
of talent,
and now TJ Hockenson there, I mean, it's fucking ridiculous. So that's a great addition.
You should never throw an incomplete pass.
Right. If they are
O's for PM,
if their coach is smart, once the games get into, like, prime time or to nut cutting time, just give the ball to Dalvin Cook.
Yeah,
like you can afford.
You could make the argument that you could actually change your game plan in prime time. You could be the first team in history to decide to change the way you play football in prime time, because you do not trust
scared of the dark,
daylight
bro.
savings
Scared
time
of the dark.
Cousins.
Yeah, scared of the dark.
The argument could be made, and I don't even know if it would be such a bad idea. look, I mean, I don't want to harp on about the fact that Kirk Cousins can't win a game when more than 4 people are watching, but I just at the same time, and in the same vein as talking about the Seahawks, the Giants, we just know he's not the dude. I will say he's got more potential to turn it around than your Daniel Joneses or your Geno Smiths. Turn around his record when the game is really on the line, but I still don't see it happening, and it still says to me, like, we might not be there at this point of the season, but eventually we're going to need to start looking at this power rankings and saying, yeah, but I mean, come playoff time. Come playoff time. And it might not be yet. I mean, we're only at the halfway point, which feels crazy, honestly. But you know,
So
this is what, just for the Gen Zers out there listening, this is what people over 30 do. They go like, where does the time go? Because your brain literally gets worse at remembering shit. So the fucking time jumps happen more and more frequently. It's great.
You learn that in sophomore in psychology class.
Sophomore. Yeah, but I remember some stuff at least. But sorry, we were talking about the Minnesota Vikings. Go ahead, Mike.
Just one thing before Bobby goes. I mean, for everyone to say, "Well, this is a different Kirk Cousins, it's a different Minnesota Vikings." Literally, if you just turn the clock back 4 years and you sub out Justin Jefferson for Stephon Diggs, you still have Adam Thielen, you have Kyle Rudolph instead of Hockenson, and you have a better defense, he still couldn't win. That's just going to happen.
That's a great fucking point.
This Vikings team has been good on paper for years. And I agree with you that it's becoming frustrating to listen to people talk about them like this game plan has finally come to fruition and they've just hit the scene and their suits are pressed and they're ready to show us who they are. When you're exactly right. This almost exact iteration of this team has existed, just like the different version of the Power Rangers, you know, like it used to be regular Power Rangers. Now it's fucking X Fighting Force. If they're doing the same plot lines, they're just on Mars now. So Bobby, come on. You heard the man. Number 5 on the fucking power rankings, this team. They've cast a fucking spell on you. And I get it. They've cast a spell on everybody because this is what they do. They flatter to deceive, and they do this shit every fucking time. They do it every time, and it's gonna be the same thing.
I'm not really sure what DK stands on the Vikings.
Fuck
yeah, it's hard to make them any lower when you look at the teams below them.
It's the 49ers.
The 49ers
you can put
totally get it, but they're 4-4. And the Vikings are 6-1.
Like you said, the Niners are swimming with sharks, bro.
Agreed. But the only fucking loss the Vikings have are to the undefeated number 1 team on the rankings, the Eagles. In prime time.
But again, this is what I'm talking about. When we've done this a couple of times across the course of the power rankings, and I understand why you're want to do it, but to say this team beat this team, so they should beat this team, eliminates context, like we've talked about. What time was the fucking game on? Right? Like this is one of the things.
That's
right?
Really,
it eliminates context.
The number one context. What time was the game?
Yeah, right. But I mean, I put other context too. You know, like stylistic matchups. Oh, they run the ball well. We don't defend the running the ball quite well, but we played 6 teams that don't run the fucking ball well. This kind of stuff matters. It's not just this team's good, so they should beat this team. Like we've talked about the parity in the NFL all year. The Vikings have an inflated record. They have a fucking inflated record for who they are. They're incredibly talented on the offensive side of the ball. I would in fact put their talent on paper, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like absolute stud skill players. I would put it up against any team in the NFL, and I stand by that, no problem. We know the context. The context is Kirk Cousins won't get it done for you.
You got to have heart. You got to have heart.
Miles of heart. Miles and miles of heart.
That's 2, guys.
Also, but quite frankly, that's just the case, and it has to be said. You know, I know it gets boring talking about Kirk Cousins not being able to play after a certain time of day, but it has to be said.
Can I say that? Does the coach make a difference? That's what I'll throw out there. Is I think I have a little more faith in KOC than I do.
I think you want Zimmer. That to be the case. I
agree.
But I think it'd be nice, you know, it'd be nice for they're taking up a huge portion of fucking real estate on your power rankings. They own fucking Broadway on your power rankings. And
no, not Broadway. Maybe not Broadway. Like also Charleston Avenue.
But you know, two quick things. Like you would think that Zimmer would have been the perfect coach for Kirk Cousins because he built up a stud defense and still surrounded him with offensive talent, and
He
still
made it
couldn't win.
impossible to fail.
Right.
And yeah.
And then I will just say, this is my hot take. I don't know if it's that hot. This year is the year where either Kirk Cousins becomes like a Aaron Rodgers, or if he's a Philip Rivers. Like, he's been underachieving for so long that we thought, okay, he's going to overachieve.
Just so perfect. That's exactly right. That Philip Rivers analogy.
It's Philip Rivers.
So
Philip Rivers
exactly
seems right.
on point. You know, it's a guy that it's almost insulting to Philip Rivers to say this, because I think I think on talent, I think Philip Rivers is immensely more talented than Kirk Cousins from the time he got into the NFL to the time he left. I think that he got dealt a couple rough hands, but essentially you're right. He couldn't get the fucking job done. And that's what matters. That's what it's a cold world.
Philip Rivers would have got the job done if that fucking safety could have held on to the ball.
But
that's
this is
besides the point.
This is the thing. But he would have if career has Kirk Cousins is wearing that t-shirt.
But Philip Rivers isn't. He would have if the game wasn't at 7 p.m.
Well, but they're all
just context, man. This is what I'm talking about.
There was that delineation in his career where he went from an overachiever on a team that you didn't expect to do anything, and then he was always someone that could never get over the hump. And like, that's where we are with Kirk Cousins. And in Washington, when he replaced RG3 and they had that playoff victory, it was like, okay, maybe this is the guy. First couple of years in Minnesota, again, he brings that team back up to, resurrection from Teddy Bridgewater and all that. And now they're still in the same spot. They're a great regular season team. They're like the Braves without a World Series. They will always be there, but they just won't do it when it matters.
You know, Peyton Manning had to be so good at football to not take any shit for never being able to fucking actually get it done until, all the way into 2006. And then it wasn't really him when he won in Denver. And Kirk Cousins is not good enough to avoid that particular chopping block. I mean, even in New England, people still didn't want to see Peyton Manning in the fucking playoffs, and at the end of the day, you want Kirk Cousins. You want, I don't care how good the Vikings are. You want to draw that number.
That's just as Bill Simmons says, the Shakey's game, that 1:30 playoff game on Saturday, bro. Cousins gonna light it up. Light it up.
Oh yeah. But it actually brings a nice transition over to a team I'm excited to talk about, because it gives me a chance to talk about my team. Is the Dallas Cowboys, number 4 with a bullet. I mean, I genuinely believe we give you shit about the Cowboys. I think that it's a fun thing to do, to make fun of each other for the teams that we like. We're kind of not allowed to do it to the Patriots fans. I don't know. It's sore subject. I don't know what it is.
Who talks more negatively about me than me?
It's not
okay.
Not you.
Yeah,
not you. You're cool.
Joe.
Just kidding. Nobody really does it to me, actually, because it's like, poor Dave. But essentially,
why can't it be poor Bob? What the fuck?
Because it's the Cowboys. This is the thing. That's why we like to make fun of you, right?
And because every single September you say this is the year. DK never does that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe next year. We got a lot of salary cap, but looking at this Cowboys team again, I mean, I've been on side with you this season and last season. I've been on the record. I really genuinely enjoy this team. I've said it many times. Their defense reminds me of the 06 Bears. They're ball hawks. They get after it. They play some kind of high risk, high reward football, and I think that that showed against the Bears this last weekend, because I think they essentially said, like, we got to make Justin Fields beat us, right? Like, we got to make this guy come out and actually beat us. And I think they were like, oh, he's doing better than we thought, and we established a decent running game. Our play calling got a lot better. But yet, what happens is when you're at a team in this elite level, and I think that this is why it wasn't a game I expected to win, when your defense isn't there, your offense goes fucking berserk, and they walk in about 5 touchdowns across the course of that game with little to no effort. I do think that there was some, and just as a Bears fan, I'm going to lay the criticism on my defense first and foremost. I'm going to be like, you guys got to get your fucking act together. It's a good litmus test for that, but they're young. But man, I mean, that offense, all the problems, all the Kellen talk, all the Dak got hurt, is their QB controversy. Looks like they are maybe becoming the offense that we hoped, prayed, thought at night, because when we couldn't sleep that they were going to be. I like the look of
when I couldn't fucking sleep.
Well, I meant the royal we.
Yeah, listen, I just think it comes down to a couple things. So, first, I think the main thing that I need to take away from this game is that I've been fucking right for the last 2.5 goddamn years that Tony Pollard needs to be the fucking starting running back for the Dallas
Well, I mean,
Cowboys.
it wasn't the hottest take, Bobby. I mean, it was pretty obvious Zeke fucking sucked.
Yeah,
I
but
just think the Cowboys are stubborn.
Listen, it's not even fucking close, guys.
You know he's going back in, right? You know he's going back in.
And that's so frustrating.
You know he's the RB1.
It's so frustrating because, like, did you just see what happened? Tony Pollard took that fucking game over, man. He took that game over. Like that one run where
he juked a guy from like 25 yards away. It was pretty crazy.
There's 4 to 5 runs during the course of that game that if Zeke is the running back, it's an 8-yard gain. And Tony Pollard turned it into a 30 to 35-yard gain.
Yeah,
it's just absurd how much better the offense is with him in
a downhill runner. You know,
Bro,
he's the kind of guy that if you have a Dallas Cowboys offense that opens up the game the way that they do when they're playing well. When Dak's playing well and he's not forcing it and he's spreading his targets around. Now, admittedly, I think that if there was any glaring weakness, it might be your receiver core. That might come back to bite you in the ass later on. But if Dak's good enough, then he can make them good enough. And if he spreads them out, you need a downhill runner. Zeke is the kind of guy you bring in to establish a running game in a game to say like, okay, 2 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards, 2 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards, that kind of dude. Your offense doesn't. I'm not gonna say they don't need it anymore, but they don't do that anymore. It's not really the game plan. What it is put the ball in Dak's hands to win the game, and everybody else needs to help him fucking do that. Which I think that's what they should do. Mike, do you agree that the offensive game planning and the faith in Dak Prescott as only an offensive coordinator can take this level of faith for a quarterback he believes is top tier, right? You're not game planning around him. You're not taking the ball out of his hands in important situations. What they're saying and what they definitively said against the Bears was, Dak's our dude. He's going to win the fucking game for us. Like, let him run the game. Let him act like Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, these type of guys. That's how you get the most out of them. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I 1,000% agree with that. Don't make him, throw the ball 60 times because he doesn't need to. Your offense is good enough with Pollard in there where you can have Dak only, attempt 27 passes,
but throw passes.
Yeah, and throw for less than 300 yards. Every single one of those yards and passes meant something. Like it sets something up, right? Dak. I think Dak is one of those interesting QBs where he has all the potential to win you a game, but and be the best guy on the field, but you don't necessarily need him to do that every single week because that offense. I would just say, the running back Pollard is so good right now. They're wide receivers, Bobby. When you said that they were top 5 wide receiver room on the preseason show, I know I called you an idiot then. I hope that you feel like you are now. Because
I do.
Because besides CeeDee Lamb, it's bad. It's
not great.
CeeDee Lamb's pretty good though,
but it will get better, presumably, because it can't get much worse. I would just say, Dak is the heartbeat of that team, and you can see that now that Kellen Moore has decided to let him manage the game. It was so consistent. You knew that the drive was gonna be a good drive after the first play because
it was also really fast. It was like they, Dak. I think if he's allowed that leash, or no leash at all, to run the offense very quickly, to go like, okay, everybody knows their assignments, everybody knows their plays, we're doing this next, to the point where Tom Brady at his best, I'm not saying Dak's Tom Brady, but Tom Brady at his best and his offense at their best, I believe that they knew the play they were going to run based on the outcome of the previous play. So if Tom Brady checked down and got a guy for 6 yards, everybody on the offense already knew what the next play was going to be after that because of the way the offense ran. You could see it when he would run hurry up offenses and just drive down the fucking field at your team. You would just be like, holy fucking shit, dude. They're not even talking. They're just like running different plays every fucking time. Yeah. And I think I saw little glimpses of that in the Cowboys offense the other day. They didn't let especially the start of the game, they didn't let the defense settle. They had this first quarter game plan all set up. It was really impressive, honestly. And I think to just let him off the leash like that is the way to go. Bobby, what do you think?
Yeah, no, completely agree. That's when I've seen Dak succeed throughout his 3-4 years in the league. So how many fucking years has he been in the league now? 5?
It was honestly, the amount I've talked about him.
It's fucking absurd.
Is it 2018?
But 2016?
2016?
2017, I think was the first year. But that's when he succeeds. That's when you see Dak at his best. Is either honestly when we're at a deficit and we need to come back, and we're just running literally constant hurry up, letting Dak do everything and direct it, or in that 2-minute drill.
Okay, but what I saw from him was this weekend though was a situation that I enjoyed watching Justin Fields do it the week before, to feel the momentum of the game sort of slipping away, to say like, fuck, we were up,
be like,
we were
nope,
up fast.
nope.
Now all of a
nope.
sudden we're not. I saw Justin Fields do it against the Patriots, and it made me feel like $1 billion, because that to me is the quality of an elite quarterback, because it's game management. It's difficult. It's an intangible, and it's difficult to see. And the best possible situation, other than a 2-minute drill driving down the field to win your team a game and doing everything right in that situation, the best situation you can really see that in display itself is when the game starts to get away from you a little bit. And the Bears were coming back. Like there was a moment there.
23?
Yeah,
At
28,
in the second
23.
half, right?
Exactly. And then what did the offense do? They just went down the fucking field and scored. They were like, got this. Don't worry about it.
The QB sneak was the turning point of the game, where they
Which
called
we're
that
apparently
QB
super
sneak.
vulnerable to. I don't know what the fuck's going on there, but
Bro, I've never seen a QB sneak in my life go for 30 yards.
we've been
never happened before.
I mean, really,
If that
because, like, you
happened-
should watch Justin Fields game. Every now and again, that dude makes like absolutely.
But if
breaks
that
out
happened
fucking
in the playoffs last year, we might be talking a whole different story.
Well,
Maybe with
I mean,
the-
as
but-
we've discussed,
anyways,
playing the Bears playing the Bears in the middle of a Sunday isn't exactly the same as the playoffs. And unfortunately, the Dallas Cowboys do have a little bit of that quality that they Kirk Cousins themselves once the
whole
fire
team is
well,
Kirk Cousins. So fucking
Just the coach. Just the coach.
Yeah, it might be the coach.
or the owner or the GM maybe.
So I just have a question here. So
For
listen,
who?
I look at my power for both of you. I look at my power rankings and I see a solid tiered discrepancy between the first 7 and then this top 3 that we're about to go over, right?
Of course.
What do the Cowboys need to do to join that top group? I know it's pedigree, I know that, but like when you watch football, right? What do you guys think they need to do to be like, okay, this team is legit. They're a part of that top 4.
They need to beat one of the 3 teams that are in the first 3 spots.
Is
Unfortunately,
that's the only chance?
to
need
me,
to-
it's they have the opportunity to go play the Eagles.
Right.
It's a divisional game, and I think you might be the only team that with their remaining schedule with the potential to bloody their record up. You got to go beat the fucking Eagles, to be honest with you, because you can see them play pretty football until the cows come home. It's about what do you look like? How did your mind shift when the Bills beat the Chiefs? You know what I mean? Like it was like, okay. You might not necessarily be taking the Bills over the Chiefs now, or in a playoff situation in Arrowhead or whatever, but you go, oh fuck, like the juggernauts have to play each other. They have to beat the fuck out of each other. So if you want in that conversation, just like a heavyweight boxer, you got to go beat one of the guys that everybody is already talking about. That's the only way I see it being really convincing to break into that top 3. Mike, you might disagree.
No, I was going to say you need to beat them convincingly. So the Cowboys need to beat Philly by 2 touchdowns or more. Right. Okay. You need to leave no doubt that you were the better team, and show Philly's flaws. I think
They're there.
of course they are. Yeah,
There's
but
game tape on them now.
they just run it up, but they just run up the score so quick that it doesn't matter.
The run game is so scary, Philly.
Yeah, but that's it. I mean, your defense is elite. Your quarterback is elite.
That was like hard for Mike to say. It's like,
I was gonna say,
You see that cringe? You see that cringe right there?
Yeah, it might have been a stroke. Your running back. I mean, Pollard isn't elite yet, but he has elite tendencies. But you need 3 good to great skill players.
Pollard is. Listen, let me just say, Pollard is fucking elite. He has been elite since he came in this league.
no, I think he's showing. I think he's showing
Yeah,
that.
he has elite
But
tendencies.
he is, man. No, he
He's
is.
showing it, but you can't
Every
say that
time-
about.
Have you
But honestly, it's not like you go off half cocked. So like that's
It's like 7. Never.
No,
Especially with Cowboys.
Not one.
7 out of 10 times he touches the ball, it is a positive 6 or 7 yard play. I just can't believe we're still talking here. Like, listen, like
Sorry,
I don't
stop.
No, I don't mean to beat this into the ground, but like I have been saying Pollard is better than Zeke for so fucking long, and it's so fucking annoying that next week, because you guys both already said it, next fucking week Zeke is going to out-touch Pollard, and I'm gonna see that fucking
After a 3-yard run.
fuck you, Zeke. I don't want to feed you. I want you to starve, bro. I want you
So-
to starve. I want.
So let me
God
let me
damn.
let me just paint you before we got to get onto these last three here, but let me just
Yeah,
paint you one scenario before we move on. You got the Packers this week, I should say. Then you got the
No,
Vikings.
it's next week. We're on a bye week.
Oh, you're on a bye week. Sorry.
Yeah, we're
Your
on a
next
bye week.
games. So your next games are you got the Packers, then you got the
Right.
Vikings, then you got the Giants, right? So you got two teams that are on these power rankings, right, with winning records. Both records I think are a little inflated, and one team that again still has the potential to be at the big boys table, like we talked about. You 3-0 your next three games. You're in the conversation about
We're in there.
the
Okay.
first three. You're in the
Okay.
conversation about it because I might not necessarily agree with it because you've heard my opinions on the records of the Giants and the records of the Vikings, but they're winning records. There's nothing you can do about that. So you go and win those three games. You're in the conversation. Don't fuck up when you play the Colts. Don't fuck up when you play the Texans. Don't fuck up when you play the Jags. I mean, it's going to be a different looking league at the week after you play the Jaguars and you go in and play the Philadelphia Eagles. The league is going to be looking real different. That's a lot of games in between then and now. So what do the Eagles look like at that point? You still think they have a perfect record? Quite possibly. Like they're playing all teams that they could beat. However, the Cowboys might want to keep Tony Pollard in their back fucking pocket because I think you can win every single game I just talked about by playing Zeke and doing the thing or whatever, and then just like tell Zeke to go to the fucking club that day. Take fucking Tony Pollard to Philadelphia and have him run. Yeah, just have Tony Pollard run all fucking over the Philadelphia Eagles. Expose the fact that maybe they don't defend the run that well to an elite running back. Maybe you can expose those things. Don't get pass blocked the way that everybody seems to get pass blocked against the Philadelphia Eagles because, man, Jalen Hurts could sit in that fucking pocket and do his taxes. I mean, it's insane. So, you got to be able to rush the QB. And all of a sudden, like Mike said, you win against the Philadelphia Eagles, who are potentially still undefeated or have only lost one game by that point or two games maybe. Then you're really in the fucking conversation until the playoffs when you lose to a team you should beat. So moving on to the top three, we're going to do the top three the way we always do.
Really just built me up just to fucking jab me, right?
Yeah. You can just call me the Dallas Cowboys. Because like, damn, they didn't perfect that art. I don't know who did. So we're going to do the same thing we always do. Fun little game on the power rankings week. We're going to take the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Eagles.
I like this game,
guys. I think that it does show something of what we all kind of intrinsically believe deep down in our hearts. We're going to take all three teams. First, we're going to take 3 versus 2 in a playoff scenario with the records the way they are, which puts the Bills at home, right? Puts the Bills at home. If the Bills and the Chiefs play each other in the AFC Championship game, who do you take?
Mike. Still the Chiefs.
Still the Chiefs for me as well.
Yeah.
Still the Chiefs for me.
It has to.
Bobby, I think you flip-flopped a couple times, right?
Yeah, last week.
Not like you at all.
in 1 week.
Never.
We'll get to you in a second. So why? And is it this thing that we seem to sort of thematically agree on, this big boy table argument where they still are the Kansas City Chiefs? They still can turn it on at will. Also, I'd say like Juju's getting involved now. It seems like he's actually like starting to use the guys that came in. He's starting to fit into these schemes. They get better as the season goes on, and they start really fucking good. So, I mean, it's still them for me too. Why is it still them for you?
I heard on the broadcast last week. I don't know who was calling it, but they said that the Chiefs have more plays of 35 yards or more this year than they did last year. And Tyreek isn't there.
It was my boy. Romo.
Tyreek's gone, and their offense is still this explosive. So I don't know. I think there's something to be said about, yes, Josh Allen outdueled him in the regular season. To have the nuts to do that in the postseason is not something that we've seen Josh Allen and the Bills do, but we've seen it over and over again by the Chiefs.
I'm not saying he can't, but
yeah, he just hasn't.
It's a different fucking kettle of fish. Bobby,
right.
Where do you stand now?
Just because the Bills are so goddamn impressive and the moves that they made. Listen, I love Naeem Hines on this Bills team. I think it sets up such a different aspect of this Bills offense that we haven't.
But there's a thing
seen.
about diminishing returns, though, right? It's like we're still talking about the Bills. They still have a fucking ton of weapons. They still are a fucking wagon, like everybody always says.
Yeah,
like,
but listen.
Mike's point still stands. You know?
I hear your Kirk Cousins argument, and I hear that argument coming through right now. But like, it's fucking Josh Allen. This is a guy that gets. This is a guy that gets smoked at the 1 yard line, looks up to the guy and goes, I fucking love it. I love it. Like, Josh Allen is a different fucking human being, man. And when you look back at that playoff run he had last year, right? Yes, they lost that game, but he did literally everything that was in his human possibility to win that game. He drove them down the field. He won that fucking game. All right. He scored a touchdown with 20 whatever fucking seconds that was left and won that game. And they still lost.
Yeah.
And I just look at it as
I don't think the expression is that almost only counts for horseshoes, hand grenades, and playoff games. I think it's just the first two. So he didn't do it.
But
Right.
no, but
Right.
he didn't get to touch the ball again. What he didn't literally
Don't put yourself in that situation in the first place. Just win the fucking.
What did he?
Right.
It doesn't matter that he didn't. It doesn't matter that he didn't get to fucking touch the ball at
He
the end. He got
literally-
to touch the ball all through the fucking game. Score more
He
points. than
literally
Good job.
won the game with 14 seconds left.
They lost it.
If Justin
He
Fields
didn't though.
went down the field and listen, I'm just saying when it comes down
No,
to
I
it,
totally see your point. I'm just fucking with you. I completely see your point.
I'm picking the Bills, man, because Josh Allen is a different human being, especially right now. I just think when you look at the way he's playing football, he doesn't give a fuck about what anyone's saying. He doesn't give a fuck about who hits him. He doesn't give a fuck about who's open.
Yeah,
It
but
doesn't matter.
His
He's
ribs
gonna
might
find a
after
way.
18 weeks, though, Bob. I mean, he can only take that many hits.
But we've seen it before for one season. I feel like this is his season where his body's just like fuck.
He
it.
did this last year too. He's been durable his entire career.
And should have won that fucking game.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda. I mean, listen, I'm inspired
I'm
by your
picking the
speech
Bills.
just now.
I'm
I'm
picking
inspired
the
by your
Bills.
speech just now. Genuinely, there was like a fucking Guess Jeans commercial starring Josh Allen. Like I was really there. Like you really put me in the fucking, right in Disney Ranch, fucking watching this all play out. But just we've talked about football enough. This was fun. I'm gonna ask the final question that we always end the power rankings on. And it's going to prove my point about yet again, and as it does every week, unless you just want to derail me, about the number one team in the NFL and how they're unproven. So, Mike, you have the Chiefs. If they play the Eagles in the Super Bowl, who are you putting your hard-earned money on to win that game?
Chiefs.
And Bobby, you picked the Bills. They're playing the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Who are you putting your hard-earned money on to win that game?
Literally only because I don't want the Eagles to win another fucking Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The Bills.
Yeah, there's
No, you
so
heard it
many,
here
Bobby.
first. You heard it here first, folks. You heard it here second. You heard it here third. We've talked about it every single week. The Eagles are the number one team on the power ranking.
No one,
And nobody believes in them. So thank you very much for Mike Marcangelo, for the real BK Bob Kelly. I myself am DK Sizzle, Dave Clark, and I really appreciate you guys listening. That was a fun one. Talk to you next week on the Power Ranking Show. Thanks.